Hello and welcome, my friends. My name is Elon Osborne, and I like to talk about movies, audio, and music. And for those of you not familiar, I have mounted 6 height channels in my testing theater. 2 up front, 2 on the sides, and 2 in the rear. And I recently wanted to do a test for you that have recently gotten into Dolby Atmos and got yourself a 5.1.2 configuration, since that's technically the smallest Atmos setup you can build. But concerning that point 2, what's the best placement for those 2 height channels you now have? Well, let's get into it, shall we?
Hooray!
I watched 3 things to test this out. The lobby scene in The Matrix, with all those bullets and debris flying everywhere, the intro to Mad Max Fury Road with all those voices in Max's head and other insanely active Atmos effects throughout, and lastly the OG Jurassic Park intro, since there's a lot that happens sonically when the Velociraptor messes up the whole operation and starts to munch on Joffrey, the unfortunate gatekeeper. That, and it's a DTS soundtrack, so I wanted to throw that into the mix. So, how do they sound? When we're dealing with front heights, which in my case they are mounted right in the corners where the wall and ceiling meet, you're creating the wall of sound. Essentially, you're creating an illusion that not only are you getting effects coming from above, but it makes it seem like your TV also has grown in size. It's pretty trippy, but in a good way. Echoes and reverberations resonate from above now, making the scene larger than life, expanding beyond the boundaries of your TV. When I switch to middle heights, meaning they're mounted directly to my sides, again in the corners where the wall and the ceiling meet, shooting down at me, this was definitely different than the front heights. Or maybe you at home are thinking of putting 2 heights directly above you in the ceiling. This would be essentially the same test. But since they're directly in line with my ears to the sides, it was more of a true binaural experience, creating the hemisphere of sound around me. Certain height effects seem to reverberate within my brain a little more, so that was cool. And since we're dealing with a 5.1.2 setup, the surrounds being placed behind me and pointing towards the listening position, it was almost as if the side heights created this hybrid 7.1/Atmos effect, since they nicely filled in the audio between the fronts and the surrounds. Does that make sense? So I would say, as far as just pure height effects that my brain could process as being literally above me, this was the winner. But more on that later. Finally, I tested out the rear heights. It was pretty cool, but sometimes seemed just a little bit off. It definitely gave me more of a feeling of sound enveloping me, with the fronts taking the brunt of the main sounds, and the rear effects expanding upwards. But since most of the action is taking place in front of me on the TV, hearing those height effects mostly behind me made it seem out of place at times. It was mostly cool, but not always.
Recap.
So what's the final verdict? Well, clearly I wouldn't recommend putting your heights behind you if you only have 2 speakers up there. So let's say that would be my third choice. But the 2 remaining options are a bit tricky to say yay or nay, because in the end, it's all subjective. I know there are some of you out there who would prefer to have a wall of sound in front, rather than a binaural experience to your sides. So all I'm gonna say is I preferred the effects that mid-height speakers provided, but creating that wall of sound, creating the illusion that your TV has grown double or triple in size, is still a very close second. But in the end, I liked how my mid-heights tickled my brain a little more. I don't know what that says about me, but let's not be too quick to judge, shall we?
And there you have it.
Well, folks, I hope this cleared the air maybe just a little regarding placement of the heights in a basic 5.1.2 Atmos configuration. Are you wanting to experiment yourself now? Or maybe prefer the middle ground, mounting in-ceiling speakers between the front wall and directly above you? But I've also read in the RO3D specifications that mounting them at such an extreme angle can make it so the effects miss your head. But again, it's all subjective in the end. Whatever sounds best to you is all you need. If you do end up moving your 2 heights in different places, all in the name of science, please let me know how it went. I'd be very curious to know your results. So let's start a conversation, people. As always, please be kind to each other out there. Don't just watch TV and movies, experience them. And of course, always be listening.